It's hot, it's humid, but here at Sepang, the air is also heavy with expectation for what is about to happen in this Malaysian Grand Prix. Watching it all, Martin Brundle and James Allen.
Thank you, Steve. Hello, everybody. Welcome to Kuala Lumpur. And despite the stultifying heat here, this has been a frantic weekend right from the get-go. Qualifying yesterday was a hairy, scary affair with the teams under intense pressure to get all their laps in the allocated time. And really, it is madness now in the garages trying to get it all done. And we saw Renault making a mistake with Alonso's car, putting too much fuel into it. He basically carried double the amount of fuel he wanted for the pole position shootout, and was, as a result, was 2 seconds off the pace, and he starts down in 7th place as a result. It's been frantic elsewhere as well. In the garages, the mechanic have been frantically changing engines. So far, we've had 6 teams who've had to do an engine change. And Felipe Massa has had 3 engine changes alone on his car. Obviously, that's had repercussions on the grid. It's pushed a lot of cars towards the back of the grid, and that will certainly be a feature of this afternoon. But trying to make these new V8 engines last for 2 whole Grand Prix distances was always going to be a major challenge when the first 2 races were Bahrain in the sandy, hot desert, and here in the jungle and the humidity of Malaysia. We're riding on board with the safety car, just going around doing its final inspections. There's one of the men who's had to change his engine, Rubens Barrichello. He wasn't very happy in Bahrain either with a problem with his gearbox, so it's been a difficult start to his Honda career for Rubens Barrichello. There's Jacques Villeneuve. He's starting from 10th place on the grid. He's pretty pleased with this car. Believes that BMW, having taken over Sauber, really pushing that team forward. Johnny Herbert just recovering in a leisurely fashion. There's your pole sitter, Giancarlo Fisichella, his 3rd career pole. And, well, there's a number of different strategies at play here this afternoon on the grid. As we take a quick look at it, Fisichella and Button, we believe, are going to stop. Well, Fisichella, I'm told, around about lap 14 or 15, Button perhaps lap 17. The 2 Williams are very interesting, right up there on the 2nd row of the grid. Rosberg has 1 less set of new tyres than Mark Webber, which could be crucial in deciding the outcome between those 2 drivers, because a new set of tyres here at a pit stop is worth about 2 seconds on your out lap and your first flying lap. You can see Montoya and Raikkonen, they are the dark horses in every sense, 5th and 6th on the grid, and they've got quite a bit of fuel. You expect them to come in perhaps lap 22 or 23. Alonso, the unknown, how much fuel is left in that car after qualifying, how much was in there in the first place. None of the teams really have a good handle on that, and generally speaking, they always have a pretty good idea of what everyone's going to do. And then you can see at the back, Michael Schumacher qualified 4th, but with a 10-place drop goes back to 14th. The 2 Midlands are there on row 8, the 2 Super Aguris on row 9, and then the 4 men at the back all changing engines. You can see Ferrari really have had problems with their engines. Coulthard as well has had to change. Michael Schumacher must be a question mark, Martin, his engine, because Massa, his teammate, has had 3 changes. Schumacher 1 change yesterday morning, but I understand that a problem with the piston rings, whether it's a manufacturing problem for Ferrari or just a design problem, I'm not sure, but it's certainly been a huge headache for them this weekend. And in the sense of the front wing and the engines, Ferrari really have been the focal point of this weekend, haven't they?
Yes, I'm told that Ferrari have been advised to get that front wing sorted out for the next race. There's a bit of an unofficial agreement, apparently, that if something's a little bit grey, rather than throwing the car at that weekend, which is actually quite difficult to do, to make fundamental changes to a manufactured part or a composite part like a front wing flap. They've been told don't turn up with it here, don't turn up in Australia with it. I think McLaren are under the same advice with a piece on their rear wing too, but we are told that up to 8 teams have signed a piece of paper to say they may protest that Ferrari front wing. It's the upper flap. It's attached on the nose by a tiny sliver of carbon fibre, and quite clearly it looks like it can twist. Whether it does or not remains to be seen. To reduce the front wing and give them greater straight line speed, and then it comes up and gives allegedly better grip in the corner, better downforce in the corners. Now, trust me, the wings have been designed to flex and move. I had one back in 1993 on a Ligier, and I can't imagine just how much they've evolved that process between now and then. So the teams, there's a lot of claim and counterclaim amongst the teams about bendy wings, which helps their aerodynamic performance at high speed. But engine problems, 7 cars have changed, and you've got to expect to see some other problems during the Grand Prix. And I know there'll be a lot of fingers crossed on the pit wall for reliability during the next 56 laps. Just over an hour and a half of racing is what we're expecting.
It's going to be physical on the drivers as well. over the course of the next hour and a half, they will shed about 4 litres of fluid, about half a stone in body weight. So if you're considering a crash diet to get yourself in shape for the springtime, you could do worse than to come here and compete in a 57-lap Grand Prix, because that will lose you half a stone right off.
This 10th-place drop business confuses a lot of people. I asked 3 people at Ferrari yesterday where Michael was on the grid, and I was given 3 different numbers, none of which is where he's actually starting today. I asked DC David Coulthard last night where he is on the grid, and he fully understood that he was in P20, but actually he starts 19th. Just how they trigger when there's seven changes of engines, it's the sequence in which they're triggered gets quite complex. But anyway, we now have a grid, and I think we have drivers on there who are very confident in their strategies and their opportunities this afternoon, and those McLarens I'm expecting to be extremely strong. On Alonso's car, they recalibrated a fuel rig and made their problem worse, and that's why Flavio Briatore just said to me, yeah, we thought we'd let a Fernando drive to Australia for the next Grand Prix. We put so much fuel in him, but they're hoping they can recover that situation as the race unfolds. But a very unusual scenario where they've just put too much fuel in the car and you're not allowed to take it out.
Yeah, it's amusing.
High gear, low rev, keep the engine cool. Try and warm up the brakes to the tyres by swerving. Don't ride the brakes. Okay, Nico, please go to start 3. Start position 3, confirm back. And remember, it's deep. Next start, deep.
Don't know what deep did he say? I don't know what that means. Obviously there'll be a start strategy that they're putting in that's consistent with the grip of the tarmac that they've tested from the pit lane, and with the track temperature and all sorts of parameters they will have factored into the situation for Rosberg. Heat the brakes up, in other words, use them, but don't ride them, otherwise you'll glaze the surface. Keep the tyres warm, but keep the revs down. Do not use a lot of revs. Formula 1 cars have no fans in them. They are just beginning to cook about now.
36 degrees, the track temperature, 33 the air temperature. The humidity has crept up over the last hour to about 62%. You can see a few clouds floating around the horizons. That's not unusual for Malaysia, and when it does rain, it rains really hard here in monsoon quantities. But listening to Rosberg there, of course, bear in mind that he'll be quite tentative at the start here, relaxed as he can be, because he lost an awful lot of places at the start of his first Grand Prix last week in Bahrain. It dropped him back to the very back of the field. He lost 45 seconds because he was too hasty into the first corner. He won't want to make that mistake again.
Last thing they need now is for somebody to stall the engine or have a problem and have to go through this procedure again. That will start to get very, very critical for the engines. The people at the front have been stationary now for half a minute, and if it goes much nearer to 45 seconds, that's getting too long. That back end, they need to be much tighter to the pack, because the cars are ticking over and just boiling up.
Well, we've had the parade lap, 56 racing laps to come. When the 5 lights go out, we'll be racing here in Sepang. And they're away. Fisichella on the right, Button on the left. Who's got the drop? It's Fisichella. Rosberg comes across to cover Webber. He's pushing him towards the pit wall. Webber's not lifting his foot, though. Who's going to get the inside line between the two Williams? Is it Rosberg? Right round the outside goes Alonso. What a beautiful start by the world champion. And as Rosberg and Webber were practicing that strategy they told Martin about, Alonso caught the napping. He's up to 3rd. Fantastic.
Alonso just caught them watching each other. What a stunning start from him. And if he's big on fuel, which we know he is, he's in an incredibly good position. The McLarens are fighting off and having to really protect their position. A Ferrari on the grass at the top, which must have been Michael Schumacher. And McLaren is off. Kimi's in the wall. He's touched somebody already, I suspect. I don't think he could have lost the car there. I imagine that's contact. Kimi Raikkonen out of the Grand Prix, and the engine was still running. Can he coax it out of the gravel trap? Gravel traps here are very, very hard, but he looked like he put the rear wing into the barrier as well. So Raikkonen in trouble.
Did he hit something? Is he able to get the clutch going again? The smart money in the paddock was on Kimi Raikkonen to win this Grand Prix. The favourite is out. At the front, Fisichella leads. Button is 2nd, Alonso 3rd. 4th is Webber. He did get in front of his teammate. Raikkonen is out. Rosberg is in 5th place. Then it's Montoya, Klein, Heidfeld, Trulli and Villeneuve. Raikkonen had got himself up to 5th place before he went out. So who did he hit? Was it one of the Williams?
And Rosberg got off the start very well, but he just never seemed to really gather enough speed. He looked like he was going to threaten. There's a Toyota there of Ralf Schumacher trying to get up the inside of one of the Toro Rossos, but I'd be interested to see the start again. Rosberg looked like he got away well and was going to threaten Jenson Button, and all of a sudden he was under attack, almost as if he hit the rev limiter in one of the upshifts. And there then is Ralf Schumacher and Massa having a look too. So let's have a look. They're back 13th and 14th. They're in the middle there. Scott Speed is the Toro Rosso driver. Coulthard up from 19th to 11th already. 10th is Michael Schumacher from 14th.
Well, they're showing Raikkonen as having stopped out on the track. It's a bittersweet circuit for the Finnish driver. He got his first Grand Prix victory back in 2003 here, but on all his other visits, he has yet to finish a race. And once again here this year, it's bitten him. There you can see the Ferrari, that's Massa attacking Scott Speed. This is the battle for 14th place. And that's Klein. Oh no, Christian Klein, 7th on the grid after a fantastic qualifying performance. Again, punching above the Red Bull's weight. He's hit someone as well. What a frantic first lap.
I suspect it's Kimi Raikkonen, because Raikkonen could not have made an error where I believe he went off. Ted may have some news for us at Red Bull.
Well, I think he must have, because he's absolutely ripped the suspension of the right front, that make that the left front. They're refueling the car, but no, this is terminal. They take off that front tyre. Well, Darren Nichols, the chief mechanic, is having a look. No, it's out. He must have hit Raikkonen, because that is terminal damage for Klein, which is a shame.
See, this is the problem with taking the optimum strategy in this new qualifying system. So, okay, right, we'll give up front row of the grid or first two rows. We want the right amount of fuel in for the Grand Prix, and then you put yourself back in the danger zone of collecting other runners in the first lap, and that's what's happened to Kimi Raikkonen. He's probably got the perfect car underneath him, the perfect amount of fuel as Massa takes Scott Speed, but it's left him exposed, and he's paid a very, very heavy price.
Everyone's feeling their way with the new qualifying format. You can go for grid position, or you can carry a bit more fuel into the race, and as you say, there's a danger in being in the midfield pack. Kimi Raikkonen will certainly re-evaluate. It was interesting yesterday afternoon, Montoya said that when he was at Williams, they tended to think about grid position. McLaren think about the race. Look at the two McLarens on the right then. Look at Alonso making his progress down the left-hand side, right behind the two Williams now as they go down the pit wall.
Yeah, Alonso's coming from a long way back. He's playing a video game at the moment. He's like, okay, you watch each other. I'm coming right round the outside. He was so lucky that the Williams didn't get together, because they would have scooped him up as well. And relatively well behaved there. And this is Alonso with that mega Renault start. And there he is behind the two Williams. The two Williams are now going to the inside, and he can recognise straight away that's a potential zone, danger zone. He's on the grippy part, the normal racing line, just giving himself enough space around the outside, tucks in nicely behind Button, and Button did get away better. And look, that's Raikkonen. I think his right rear. I think his right rear was slightly out of kilter. Here we go. No, that's a replay of the start. Oh yeah, he got tagged on the right rear, I imagine by Klein, and now it's going to spin him straight off. So yeah, right rear suspension failed, but because he was collected by another car on the apex of turn 4, almost certainly Klein.
Yeah, looking at the replay of the start as they went down towards turn 1, you could see Christian Klein's Red Bull coming down the left-hand side. The two McLarens are over on the right, but they were definitely on the same piece of tarmac. So several corners later, that looks like what happened. We haven't seen it with our own eyes, but it looks like Christian Klein tagged Kimi Raikkonen, and he is out of this Grand Prix. This is lap 4. Fisichella leading Jenson Button by 1.5 seconds. Alonso is third for Renault. Fourth, Mark Webber, but attacking the Renault of Alonso. Fifth is Montoya. Sixth, Heidfeld. Seventh is Rosberg. And eighth, Jarno Trulli in the Toyota. Riding on board with fourth-placed Mark Webber, 29-year-old Aussie, chasing down the reigning world champion, Fernando Alonso. That's the battle for the final podium position, third place. Webber had a battle with a Renault here last year, if you remember, Giancarlo Fisichella, that ended in tears. We certainly won't want to repeat that. There you can see Rosberg, his teammate, going through the frame. Trulli as well. Behind Trulli is Jacques Villeneuve in 9th place, and Michael Schumacher is up from 14th to 10th place now, some 12 seconds behind the race leader.
Fisichella fastest lap, 1:36.0. The pace quite slow at this stage. Remember on the grid, Webber said, I hope I don't get held up behind Button. He thought it was going to be, because he felt sure, I think, that Button had more fuel on board. But it's Alonso that's ended up getting out of position and holding him up quite heavily. What have we got in front of us with way too much brake on, and that's Rosberg coming back past Heidfeld. Heidfeld outbraking himself in that difficult final turn and losing out to the man that very much took his seat he departed from at Williams before he went to BMW.
Yeah, you generally get quite a lot of action in that corner, turn 15. Certainly last year there was an awful lot of activity. That's where Webber and Fisichella had their coming together. There you can see what's going on outside the top 10. David Coulthard up to 11th from 19th on the grid. Boy, does that guy make good starts. He really is a champion off the line. Always gets himself up from unpromising grid slots into somewhere good. Just listening to that Cosworth engine revving. Certainly the switch from BMW engines to Cosworth power this year has not harmed Williams' competitiveness. They've been a strong force in these first two Grand Prix. Lap 6 of the Malaysian Grand Prix from Sepang, about 19 miles outside Kuala Lumpur, just very close to the equator, and it is very hot here. 36 degrees the track temperature, 33 the air temperature. We're looking at the front wing of Michael Schumacher's Ferrari. You can't really see the bit that's causing the problems, but this car is under threat of a protest. Ferrari have been the centre of attention this weekend. So far, Giancarlo Fisichella leading the Grand Prix. There you can see Alonso 4 places up off the start line. Rosberg down 3, Heidfeld up 4, and Coulthard, the real hero, off the start line, up 8 places.
This is the bit they're complaining about, actually, James. It's just on the side of the nose of the front, where the front wing is coming out of the nose and then twisting. My understanding is that's exactly what the other teams are complaining about. Ralf Schumacher up 10 places from 22nd up to 12th, and Louise is down at Red Bull.
Yes, I've just walked out to the back of the Red Bull garage, basically before I got mown down, because there are a lot of very, very busy people in there frantically trying to fix Christian Klien's car. From what I can see, they're working on the front left suspension. Christian's still sitting quietly in the car. He's not said anything to the team about what happened, but I'll keep you posted as to whether they're going to be able to fix the car and get him back on the track.
Well, the pace has not been all that hot so far in this Grand Prix compared to the lap times we saw during the free practice sessions, the long runs that the team do on Friday afternoon and Saturday morning in particular. But now Giancarlo Fisichella is starting to pick up the speed a little bit. He just did a 1:35.8, some 0.6 of a second faster than Jenson Button, who is now 3.5 seconds behind him. We're riding on board with Mark Webber.
This is Webber really being held up at this stage of the Grand Prix by a Renault that could well win this race, but is very heavy on fuel due to a calibration problem on the fuel rig, is my understanding. And meanwhile, Fisichella on a different strategy. 3.4 seconds ahead of Button now. Button really needs to be closer than that. Alonso 9 seconds adrift in third, with Webber just behind him. Montoya also heavy on fuel, holding station. Little Rosberg then, P6, beginning to catch Montoya now as well. And further, oh, that's a big smoky blower from BMW, isn't it?
Yeah. Oh, no.
No, it's the Williams of Rosberg. The Williams of Rosberg.
The Cosworth engine, if that is indeed Rosberg, it's hard to tell from that tall angle. Well, Kimi Räikkönen is out of this Grand Prix. Let's hear from him now. He's with Louise.
Kimi, bitter disappointment.
Yeah, I cannot change anything, so not really my fault, but those things happen.
Just tell us exactly what did happen.
I think so. Was clean hit me on the rear tire, and I broke my rear suspension.
Thanks, Kimi.
I'd hate to think what he did in a previous life, because in this life the guy has no luck.
Well, you make your own luck, and maybe he was too cautious going in there. As I said, that's Rosberg's Cosworth. We haven't had to say that too much this year. We've got Cosworth giving him some fairly dramatic problems there. And there's a view of it from Nick Heidfeld's BMW. And once again, it's an oil fire, and quickly it uses up its oil and the flames go out. And there it goes. It's the right bank of the V8 by the looks of it. And kaboom. Well, he will get a... it's the second race anyway, so he can put a fresh engine in. He won't finish the race. There'll be no penalties. Teammate Mark Webber frustratedly held up behind Alonso.
He's using the same Cosworth engine, of course, revved to over 20,000 in qualifying, and Rosberg pushed his engine much harder than Webber in Bahrain last week, if you remember that amazing pursuit through the field he put on with 15 of the 20 fastest race laps. And this is the price you pay in the second Grand Prix weekend, that engine letting go. Nevertheless, hats off to everyone at Cosworth. They've done a good job with this engine. Bernard Ferguson, the Cosworth boss here at the races, saying yesterday they weren't planning on turning the engines down on either of the two cars, but I don't know what happened with that one, but certainly Rosberg out of this Grand Prix. Fisichella leading. You can see Button still second, Alonso third. Webber frustrated, I think, behind the Renault, who is lapping, let me see, 1:37.3, a second, 1.3 seconds a lap slower than Fisichella at the moment. So clearly a tremendous difference on fuel load between the two Renaults. And with Webber likely to pit considerably earlier than Alonso, this is a great frustration to him. Webber believing he's on for a podium here this weekend. On a track he's never had a result on. In 4 visits, he's never managed to come away with any sort of points.
Clean back out on track. Suspect it was a top or bottom wishbone they had to change. Normally your front suspension will break quite easily against somebody else's rear suspension, but normally a Formula 1 rear suspension will take quite a whack. You've just got to be unlucky with the angle. If it takes a good slap on the side, the rear suspension, the one that failed on Raikkonen's car, would normally cope with that. Obviously the rear suspension also has to transmit the 750 horsepower, so it tends to be quite a bit beefier than the front, although over the years they've really strengthened the suspension on these cars. Too many cars are dropping out of races with simple little touches, but unluckily for Raikkonen, that just threw him straight out of the race.
There's Sam Michael, the brains of the operation, on the pit wall, making the calls on strategy. He's got to think now about what he does.
You need to get by Montoya before the stop.
Well, that's ancient history, that piece of radio, because Rosberg is already out of this Grand Prix. This is lap 9. Fisichella leading Button by almost 4 seconds. Alonso third, Webber fourth, Montoya fifth, Heidfeld sixth, Trulli seventh, and Jacques Villeneuve in the Sauber BMW in 8th. Michael Schumacher up to 9th with the retirement of Nico Rosberg. David Coulthard up into 10th spot. And Ralf Schumacher from the back of the grid in the Toyota is up into 11th place. And he's embarrassing quite a few people who he's got past. You can see Felipe Massa, one of them Scott Speed, Rubens Barrichello having another very quiet afternoon in the Honda. He's lapping 2.5 seconds a lap slower than teammate Jenson Button at the moment. Currently tucked up behind Scott Speed in the Toro Rosso. There's another look at this front wing, the Ferrari. You see it moving from side to side.
What really matters, though, is it flexing down? And you know, if you try and find some kind of reference point at the closing of the gap, it doesn't look like it's moving that much, does it?
I thought it was on the main front wing, the problem with the 2 elements, and that there's nothing supporting the top element and the bottom element. I thought that was one of the areas of concern for the other teams as well. Certainly that's the situation with rear wings, how much of support they have in the centre of them, to what extent they actually lie backwards in a straight line with the pressure of the air rushing over the top of them.
Yeah, it's just what Charlie Whiting told me that he'd had the complaint about. So but I think there's a lot of other discussions on everybody's slot gaps on the rear wings, the flexibility of the rear wing end fences, letting the main rear wings go down, helps so much in a straight line.
And you can see the midfield action behind Jarno Trulli, Jacques Villeneuve, Michael Schumacher, Ralf Schumacher, Felipe Massa and Scott Speed all together Those cars separated by not too much distance. David Coulthard there, coming into the pits.
Problem for Coulthard, he lost 2 places on that lap. That's a sick motor. I think it could well be a sick motor, I don't know. And finally, Michael Schumacher, 2 former world champions squabbling over the same piece of tarmac in turn 1. And it's Michael Schumacher now through to 8th place.
Lap 11 of the Malaysian Grand Prix, and it looks like another Ferrari-powered car is in trouble. David Coulthard.
In 6th gear, stuck in 6th gear.
Stuck in 6th gear, the problem, not an engine problem then. They have had their fair share of engine problems. Felipe Massa in the works car has changed engines 3 times. And here's Michael Schumacher getting past Jacques Villeneuve. This is the battle for 8th place, the final points position. Schumacher coming through from 14th on the grid.
Yep, 2 former world champions. You can see Michael's controversial front wing flapping around in the turbulence of the BMW of Jacques Villeneuve, and sends one up the inside. Villeneuve with a no-hoper of a half an effort around the outside, because Michael very much had track position there. He moves up to 8th place. Coulthard in the pits then, so both Red Bulls with problems. Kleins has rejoined, although Klein has pitted again as well, so maybe they didn't fix all of his front suspension problems. Coulthard pits, Rosberg blown up, Raikkonen has a problem on the first lap, contact with Klein. There are both the Red Bulls, and Klein saying it just doesn't feel right, and I can understand, especially at the front end. If the front end's not tracking properly, then you've got yourself a fairly major problem around high-speed circuits like this, or anywhere for that matter in a Formula 1 car. So disaster then at Red Bull.
Well, they've shown a turn of speed, that's for sure. Klein qualifying 7th on the grid here, also quick in Bahrain, but reliability a bit of an issue at the moment for Red Bull Racing. Nico Rosberg we saw having a spectacular engine blow up a few laps ago. He's out of the Grand Prix, he's with our Louise.
Nico, the last race was a fairy tale. This one's turned into a bit of a nightmare.
Well, it started off as a bit of a fairy tale, so, you know, I can't change the engine blow up. If it is one, I would expect, because the smoke and everything, but I can't change that. So what I can do is maybe improve my first lap performance, because I had a bad start, had too much wheel spin, and then should have maybe been a bit more aggressive, but I'll improve that in the future, and now I'm looking forward to Melbourne.
Engine reliability was always potentially going to be an issue here, but the Cosworth we've seen has been so reliable so far.
Yeah, but everybody's had problems, and even with this blow-up, I think we're still one of the most reliable, so, you know, it's all right, I think, for the first 2 races, and I'm sure they're going to be able to improve for the next couple of races.
Is this potentially going to be a problem for your teammate Mark Webber?
No, I wouldn't think so. I mean, they had everything sorted out, so it shouldn't be, no.
Thanks, Nico.
Great attitude. He's not thrashing himself, but he's looking inwards and saying, okay, not bad, but I know I can do a lot better next time. And well, the kid's the toast of the paddock at the moment, and I can understand why. Fisichella, meanwhile, really having to pound on. He's 5 seconds ahead of Button, but he knows he's probably got to stop one more time than Fernando Alonso. Alonso's 16 seconds behind him, and he knows he's going to have to pit one more time. Probably, what's that going to cost him, James? 25 seconds or so around here. So we've really got 2 separate races going on here, and they could all meet in the middle a little bit later on. Fisichella and Button, 1st and 2nd, and then Alonso and Montoya, 3rd and 5th, who are fueled, we think, much, much heavier. And at the moment, Alonso has very much the better chance out of those 2. Montoya's pace is 21 odd seconds adrift already. I would think McLaren will be disappointed with that pace at this stage of the Grand Prix. Alonso now responding to his teammates' fast times, but they're not nose to tail, the 4 of them, but they are very much in the same race at the moment.
Yeah, very much so. It tends to all come together around about the 2nd stops, and that's when all the action comes along. Very changeable with the strategies, of course. Montoya lapping a 1.5 seconds a lap slower than race leader Giancarlo Fisichella, albeit he's carrying more fuel, but still that, as you say, Martin, isn't the kind of pace I think McLaren would want from him. And, well, he had a bit of a hurry-up, didn't he, in Bahrain last weekend when teammate Raikkonen came through from 22nd on the grid to beat him to a podium. Montoya having started 5th on the grid, and that certainly will have made him think about things a little bit. Michael Schumacher having a look up the inside of Jarno Trulli. This is the battle for 7th place here. Schumacher, of course, on a fresh engine, having changed yesterday morning before the qualifying session. So whereas some of these cars like Jarno Trulli having to be a bit careful to make the engine last the second race, Schumacher has more of a fresh donkey in the back, and he pushes his way, forces his way through. Trulli tries half-heartedly to fight back, but Schui's through.
Well, he should have seen that one coming a long way back, Jarno Trulli. That was candy from a baby. But isn't that Ferrari picking up an amazing amount of slipstream effect? We haven't seen that for a long time to that extent. Schumacher is not wind affected like it was in Bahrain. That is a pure slipstream effect. The Ferrari working very well in those conditions, and then Trulli with a really half-hearted sort of attempt to sort of defend him, but he needed to cover him much earlier than that. To be fair to Jarno, actually, Michael came from so far back, and I really thought, well, Jarno knew he was there though, but he needed to cover him much earlier. Otherwise, Michael was, he just gifted him the racing line, really. Unfortunately, somebody I want to mention is Sato in 14th place in the Super Aguri, running around just 3 or 4 seconds off the pace in a team that barely got itself together for the start of the season. Ahead of Albers, Liuzzi, Montero, and his teammate Ide, as it happened. But Takuma Sato doing a great job back there, which he'll get very little credit for.
He certainly is. Into the pits comes Mark Webber. I wonder if this is a slight switch of strategy. He's been held up behind Alonso. This is lap 15. It's more or less when we expected him to come in, perhaps not quite this early, but here he is anyway. Change of tyres, of course, allowed under the 2006 rules. We didn't have them last year, but you are allowed to change tyres again this year. That's made the tyres a lot softer this year, which is one of the reasons why the lap times are still so competitive, even though the engines are 200 horsepower less.
It's just 100 kilometres per hour they're allowed to do down the pit lane, 62 miles an hour. And it looks nothing for you as a driver because you've just been going 3 or 4 times that speed, 3.5 times that speed. But it doesn't have to look fast. And the mechanics, they must watch this thing coming. It's like standing on a dual carriageway and just watching something coming towards you at 60 miles an hour. Astonishing energy as you go into a garage full of your own men. Ted is down at Red Bull where all the action is.
Yeah, David Coulthard has had to retire. His problem with the rear end. He wanted to suggest to the team that they turn this into a test session. He's telling them to have a look at the back end. He's still not quite sure. He's about to come out the garage soon. He's still not quite sure exactly what went wrong. But Christian Klein, meantime, was saying that he felt the left rear this time feel loose. But he came in, they checked it over, and they've sent him back out again.
Thanks for that, Ted. We were just watching, I thought it was it's the Midland. I thought it was a very, very long shot of Montoya running wide onto the grass. It's the Midland of Montero. He's down in 17th and penultimate runner at the moment. Ide is last at 18th. Coulthard, although he may rejoin, Rosberg, Klein and Raikkonen out of the Grand Prix.
Yeah, Montero there coming through, and you can see that that car running reasonably well towards the back of the midfield, having just a little bit of an excursion on the outside. I spoke with Johnny Herbert, sporting director of Midland Formula One, and he said they've got quite a lot of updates coming for this car. It is a big step forward on last year's car. New front suspension coming for Europe, and here comes Villeneuve lining up Jarno Trulli. We saw Michael Schumacher go through at the same corner a couple of laps ago. Trulli this time, though, goes more defensive on the inside, but he has to get off the throttle, and Villeneuve takes the place. So Villeneuve really enjoying this car, really attacking. And his teammate Heidfeld is up in 5th place. BMW Sauber are on the map here.
Yeah, I think Jacques driving really well this year. Massa will be the next one to just go and take a place from Jarno Trulli. I mean, Michael's just nailed him into there too easily, and now he's allowed Villeneuve to do the same thing. You've just got to go and cut off the inside line and then force them wide and then hang them out to dry. Just give them a little nudge or something. Look, and Trulli made a kind of a bit of a dart, but he just left all that space available. It's like big green arrow, pass me this side.
Well, we're in the zone for the first round of pit stops. This is lap 16. We've seen Mark Webber come in already. We're expecting others to come in soon. Certainly Fisichella, Button won't be too long away before their first round of pit stops. Button has not really been able to hold on to Fisichella. That last lap he gave away almost a second to him. Fisichella really putting the hammer down now. Bit of smoke is now out the back of the Williams of Mark Webber. Another Cosworth about to let go.
Yeah, it's looking a bit fiery and smoky down there, isn't it? Mark Webber
dear.
Quite sensibly getting himself off the racing line. He's not very far away. At least it's the exit of a corner. I don't know if he's in the firing line of a braking zone. He shouldn't be where he looks like he went off, but Fisichella still pumping in the fast laps as Mark Webber gets out of the car. This will be a bit of disappointment for Williams. They really expected a bit of a points haul, and there is Massa following the green arrow to pass Jarno Trulli.
Same corner, same move, 3 times in a row.
Well, maybe Trulli knows something we don't. Maybe he knows he's not going much further or something in this Grand Prix, because he seems totally disinterested down there.
There's Webber's car being towed away by the marshals. Certainly Toyota more competitive here this weekend than they were in Bahrain last weekend. You can see bits and pieces of sparks coming out of the back of that car before Webber decided a little flash of light underneath. Something's let go underneath. Smoke coming out of the rear diffuser. So, Renault are ready. Fisichella would probably be the most likely bet for coming in first, seeing as the lap times he's doing very, very quick at the moment. Here he is, your race leader on lap 17 then. First of the front runners to come in.
So he's 20 seconds ahead of Alonso. If we're right and Alonso's pitting 1 less time, probably makes Alonso the race leader effectively at the moment. He should, he'll be in second. Button will take over the actual lead. Big story now, but a lot of fuel went in there, a lot of fuel going in Fisichella's car, and the big story now is how much further, that's Alonso coming through, he's P2 then, how much further can Jenson Button go before he has to stop for a little bit of a fill-up?
So Fisichella rejoins just in front of Juan Montoya, I think, crucially. Button leads this Grand Prix. Alonso is second. Fisichella is third, and Montoya is fourth, with Heidfeld fifth and Michael Schumacher sixth. Ferrari.
Right, mate, this is an absolutely critical part of the race. If you want to stay in front of Fernando, you've got to go blindingly quick now.
Spelling it out there, Alan Permain, race engineer to Giancarlo Fisichella. You have got to go blindingly fast if you want to beat your teammate to win this Grand Prix. And I know from having talked to Fisichella over the last 2 Grand Prix how desperately he wants to beat Alonso. He was totally put in the shade by him last year, and this year he's so determined to try and get on the level terms with the guy everybody is hailing as the second coming.
That's what I love about Formula 1 racing. Everybody's competitive. Yeah, you're within a team, but you still want your car to be the winning car. Your mechanics, your gearbox man, everybody, your tyre man, they still want, if the team's going to win, they want it to be their car that wins within the team. And quite clearly then, there's very much a competition going on between Fisichella and Alonso in terms of strategy and ultimate race pace. But, oh, it's a little bit wider for him, and that's the kind of thing. It's push, but don't go off. Go fast, but don't crash. Whatever you do, bit of traffic ahead. But Fisichella, he's really got to nail these laps and use his new tyres to the best advantage. I think that's a Toro Rosso in front that's looking a little bit short of grip and a bit short of straight line. Now it's a Midland, wasn't it, in the end? It's a bit short of straight line speed. And here he goes, barreling into turn 1. Just got to touch that white line and follow it around. It'll guide you straight into turn 2. Just hang on to the front left as you fall down the hill. Flat out now. All you got to do is just mind the curve. I drove this track half dozen laps this morning. That turn 3, it's surprising how quickly the curve comes up on you, and then up the hill to 4 where Raikkonen and Klein touched. And it looks like the BAR are getting ready for one of their drivers, and Louise has found David Coulthard.
David, the information we've had from the team so far is a problem with the back end of the car. Couldn't you tell us anything more specific?
Yeah, hydraulic leak. So I lost power assistance going into the fast chicane, which in itself, you know, just makes your afternoon seem like it's going to be difficult. But unfortunately, of course, the gearbox is controlled by the hydraulics as well, so I was stuck in 6th gear. So
how long were you struggling with it before it actually stopped?
Yeah, just 2 corners. You know, once you lose the ability to change gear, you've got no chance. You know, so we're just unfortunate to retire the car.
Thanks, David.
There is Jenson Button. He's led a couple of laps this Grand Prix. His last lap was his personal best, a 1:35.7. But once again, the pace not quite there to match the Renault of Giancarlo Fisichella. He comes in then a lap later. And I was mentioning before that new tyres are worth 2 seconds over these 2 laps. Alistair Gibson there, the chief mechanic of the Honda racing team, an enormously competitive individual. He's holding the lollipop. Jenson's on the throttle, drops the clutch. That was a nice stop by the Honda team, quicker than Fisichella's.
4 seconds less fuel though, would you say? Less fuel, and there goes Fisichella. So Jenson has not jumped in. Bit of a back marker in the way too, and they so nearly met in the middle there. So it was Montoya, wasn't it? Montoya through as well. Bad news for Jenson Button. Montoya flashes through the screen And, well, it's just like Bahrain last weekend. It doesn't quite seem to want to work out, but his pace was not fast enough, was it, in the early stages? Fisichella, though, has responded to Alan Permain's demand and advice. Get on with it. You've got to push, push, push. And he's been doing very fast sectors as he's left the pits.
One of the problems that Honda have had over the last couple of seasons, you notice, is that when they come into the pit stop, particularly Jensen's car, when it rejoins the race, just not quite fast enough in the 2, 3, 4 laps following a pit stop. Part of the reason is he just seems to have quite a bit of bad luck as well, coming out behind other cars. He clearly is all over the back of Montoya here, who must be much lighter at this stage of the Grand Prix than is Jensen. But there's also something about the car that just doesn't perhaps warm the tyres up quite quickly enough after a stop. And it's in this zone, it's in these little details that the difference for Jensen between winning a Grand Prix and being second or third lies. That's the difference. He's got to try and, he and the team have just got to raise their game in that department, and then the wins will come.
Big toe, though. Big toe coming down there. Can he do anything with it? He's got more fuel on board than the McLaren. And he's nowhere near him at the end of the straight, is he? I thought he'd be really right with him, so that's a bit worrying. I don't know if he's carrying more wing or what, but we know he's carrying more fuel. Nonetheless, we've seen how much Schumacher picked up, and there's Jensen falling away. So really struggling then with this pace straight out of the box. Alonso leads by 5.4 seconds from Fisichella. Alonso now in the low 1 minute 36 as he's picked his pace up too. Fisichella 5 seconds behind him, as I said. Montoya another 4 seconds down the road. Then Button, who's one of the, with Fisichella, one of the two front runners to have pitted, but unfortunately he's now tucked up behind in the dirty air of the McLaren Montoya.
A little bit of a tweak there on the front wheel. Jensen goes off the road slightly, just getting in the dirty air of Montoya. But explain this one away. Alonso lapping in the low 136s. Fisichella with fuel on board, lapping in the low 136s. Montoya yet to make a stop, lapping in the low 137s. A second a lap slower then than the two Renaults. This is a car, the McLaren, that seems to have terrific pace in the Bahrain Grand Prix and throughout free practice here. But on Montoya's car, certainly at the moment, it doesn't seem to have the speed, and this is costing Jensen Button time.
Yeah, Montoya's just not as fast as we all thought he was going to be in the Grand Prix. His ultimate race pace is disappointing, and now it's just backing Jensen up as well. Jensen's heading for another 4th place here, unfortunately. He needs to get past Montoya quickly and make best use of these fresh tyres that they've just put on the car. This is with all these long corners, this is a track that does need and does give you a good payback for a fresh set of tyres.
Before the pit stops, Jensen Button was running in 2nd place, 7 seconds behind Fisichella. Now he is 5 seconds behind Fisichella. Alonso is 5 seconds ahead of Fisichella, and a few spots of rain was that on the lens of the camera?
Looked away, didn't it? Just coming up to pass one of the Midlands, yeah.
Andrew Shovlin, Jensen Button's race engineer, father of a 7-week-old baby. He popped home between the Bahrain race and the Kuala Lumpur race to play with him, and then got straight on the plane and came back again. But he put his hand out there to see if it was raining, and we're all asking the same question. That will have a huge effect, of course, if it does start to rain here, particularly for the people who've just made their pit stops. Anyone having to dive in for wet tyres in the next few laps would be advantaged if they haven't already made a stop. So Alonso, Montoya, they wouldn't mind at all.
Well, interestingly, Alonso then, we don't know just how much fuel he started the race with, but he's now lapping just a 10th faster than Fisichella, so it's working out quite nicely for them. They've both got to stop once more, although Alonso's stop will be longer. They put a lot of fuel in Fisichella car though, so he can go quite a long way. Alonso leads from Fisichella, Montoya, Button, Heidfeld 5th, quietly getting on with it for BMW. Michael Schumacher then up to 6th from 14th on the grid. Villeneuve holding station in 7th. Massa in the 2nd Ferrari from the back of the grid in the final points paying position, followed by Scott Speed. Barrichello struggling, you're looking at him now. Rubin said, I can't. He said, I've come from a car where I just floor the throttle and leave the traction control to sort it out. He said, Jensen doesn't drive like that. We've noted that over the last couple of years, haven't we? How smooth Jensen is on the throttle pedal and never really engages his traction control any more than absolutely necessary. And Rubin said, I just haven't set my cars up and driven like that at all. Of course, no excuses at this level. You just got to get on and make it all work for you. But he really is struggling down there in P10.
make that P9 as he tries to go around the inside of Scott Speed, who dives into the pit lane, and Barrichello continues on, so he is now 9th. Ralf Schumacher in the Toyota pitting from 11th place as well. So Alonso leading the Grand Prix from his teammate Fisichella by 5.7 seconds. Montoya is 11 seconds behind Alonso and lapping currently about 7 or 8 tenths slower than the race leader. Button is 4th. He's lost a little bit of time relative to the others, hanging tucked up behind Montoya. Heidfeld 5th as Ralf Schumacher forces his way past the lollipop. What could you do to help him? I mean, he's the second most experienced driver out in the field as Ferrari get ready for a pit stop. Neither of their drivers has stopped yet, so it could be either of them, and McLaren are ready as well. We'll come back to the discussion about Rubens and his problem in a moment, because clearly Montoya is coming barreling down the pit lane, and so too is the Ferrari of Michael Schumacher. Both of these cars are competitors today for a podium at least. It's going to be tough for them to beat Alonso, though. He seems very strong today. Montoya, this was lap 24. Schumacher knew, of course, he was going to take a 10-place drop on the grid. Is that Villeneuve coming down the pit lane? I think it is. He's about to make a stop, making his way down to his pit garage as well. Michael Schumacher goes out, and it'll be interesting to see him attacking Montoya now in this middle phase of the Grand Prix.
Yeah, Michael Schumacher had to wait a long time there before they could release him because of Villeneuve. They're quite slow, actually, down the pit lane. That cost Michael another 2 or 3 seconds. I don't know if it's hampered him with regard to track position, but Schumacher back out then. Alonso's lead up to 5.9 seconds. Button, now that Montoya's pitted, can Button pick his pace up? He's certainly matching the Renaults in the first and second sector of this lap. Jenson Button's now just really got to get back on it. He's 13 seconds away from Alonso and 7.5 away now from Fisichella. Jenson's got to push like crazy to bring himself back into contention. Right now, he's out of contention.
Well, it was a tremendous misfortune yesterday for Alonso to have the problem with refueling during the pole position shootout. According to the team, they put fuel in the car, but the refueler said nothing's gone in, so they brought him back again and put a load of more fuel in the car, and it was only about 7 or 8 laps later they found out that, in fact, he was carrying twice the amount he should have been. And every 10 kilos of fuel you carry around this track costs you about 0.4 of a second, so a tremendous penalty for Alonso, but he's shown in the past he can make good results out of unpromising grid positions, and with the engine penalty to Michael Schumacher, he moved up from 8th to 7th on the grid for this Grand Prix. Obviously, he was carrying quite a lot of fuel, and it's turned out, if in anything, to be a little bit of an advantage for him. It does seem to be today that if you're going a little bit deeper into the Grand Prix on the fuel, and you can keep the pace up, you're in good shape.
Now is your time, Ruben. Now is your time. Make the most of it.
Okay, so Barrichello's obviously fueled massively long, and it's right. Let's deliver some lap times then in this window while others are pitted, and you've got some clear track ahead of you. We have some news from McLaren.
Yeah, something weird's going on with Juan Pablo Montoya. Just after that pit stop, clearly he radioed back to the team reporting that something was wrong. All the mechanics rushed out with extra tyres. No more fuel, so he's obviously got enough fuel in the tank, but they brought out a new set of scrubbed tyres. So let's keep an eye on his lap time, see what's happening.
Well, his first sector is the fastest he's set so far in the Grand Prix, so whatever the problem was, it might appear to have gone away. Look at that left wing mirror flexing and bouncing up and down.
He's going to turn in.
Here he is, trying to get past one of the Super Aguri cars, I believe, one of the back markers. Both Sato and Ide are still out there, still lapping.
Yeah, that first sector time was the fastest of anybody, actually, on a 24.9, 3 or 4 tenths quicker than the leaders, so he's happy about something inside the car. And Montoya just suddenly getting on with it, really. Massa ahead of him is going quite quickly too. He's up into 5th place, obviously fueled long from the back of the grid too.
I'll tell you what's interesting though, Martin, if you look, we've got the computer screen here in the commentary box, and it has sector times. The middle sector for Montoya was 32.9 seconds it took him, and that's because he was tucked up behind Ide, and a normal sort of time would be in the low 31-second range. So it just shows you, if you get stuck behind a car like a Super Aguri, behind them through those twisty corners, that's nearly 2 seconds he's lost right there.
Well, these days of competitive cars and close racing, that can cost you the Grand Prix, or certainly can cost you a podium. Just something like that. You just got to hope it evens itself out. And here's a set of tyres then getting ready for brand new tyres. It's got to be for Alonso, unless it's an unscheduled stop. So he's gone. We're on lap 26 of 56. So if it is for Alonso, it wasn't exactly fuel to get him to Australia, but it was kind of reasonable enough. Massa hasn't stopped yet, nor has Barrichello. So just 3 runners then yet to come in for fuel.
Well, it means he had about 75 kilos of fuel in the car when he went to the grid, which means he must have had about 100 in the car when he started qualifying yesterday, considering that everybody else would have been carrying about 50. No wonder he was so out of bed on the lap time. Here comes the race leader then, lap 26, 10 laps later than his teammate, into the pits.
Well, as world champions, they have the right to be at the beginning of the pit lane, which gives you a nice direct approach in. Ooh, that's away quickly, isn't it? That's away very, very quickly. How far is that going to go before it needs another top-up? Have they switched him back to a 2-stopper? That's almost certain, doesn't it?
Yep, he's on definitely a 2-stop strategy. He'll be coming in again around about lap 40 or 41. Teammate Fisichella will be coming in around about lap 30. So that's your top 8. Awful lot more racing still to come here, and it's still fairly open between Fisichella, Button and Alonso, and the Ferraris can't be discounted either.
Antonio Liuzzi there, getting well wide in that turn 7 and 8. You get a bit of understeer, a bit of drift going on, and on the way into 7, you'll never get it sorted out before the exit of 8. They are very much one corner, and tricky they are too. So who have we got here? It's Michael Schumacher, and that is not for position. Nobody around him that's bothering him there for position, just making his way through the back markers.
Well, bad news, I'm afraid, for Jenson Button fans. He just doesn't seem to, again, have the pace in this middle phase of the Grand Prix. He's now 12 seconds behind the race leader and 9 seconds behind Fisichella. That last lap, he gave away 0.8 of a second to the Renault of Giancarlo Fisichella. So that's not winning pace. It's certainly podium pace at the moment, but the Ferraris are a potential threat. Albeit that Michael Schumacher seems to have got held up a little bit. He had that long wait to release him from the pit lane when Jacques Villeneuve was going past. Certainly cost him a little bit. There goes Liuzzi, fighting his way past the back marker.
Could well have been for position, I think it was. It's Takuma Sato coming back at Liuzzi and down into what must be the last corner, and they're going to get... oh, that was nice for Button, wasn't it? Got those two immediately out of the way for him.
Barrichello.
Sorry, Barrichello's the lead,
yeah, right. It was for position,
driver. Yep.
It is for position between Sato, who now looks like he's going to have a go back at the Works Honda team car of Rubens Barrichello. It's a fantastic scrap here for 14th place between Sato and Liuzzi.
Yes, it keeps throwing me. Of course, normally the lead or #1 driver in the team carries the red camera cover, but for some reason Rubens wanted the earlier number, didn't he?
I think it goes back to his karting days. It's a certain number of sentimental attachment to him. It looks like he ran a little bit wide there, Sato, and that allowed Liuzzi to go through, but nevertheless, Super Aguri competing with another team. Great effort from them. With a very well-funded Red Bull B team, Toro Rosso. Exactly the halfway stage in this Malaysian Grand Prix, the second round of the 2006 Formula One World Championship. And well, at the moment it's between the two Renault drivers, with Jenson Button trying to get himself in there as well to fight for the victory. But Fernando Alonso, who led this Grand Prix with a very heavy fuel load up until his pit stop, has just put in the fastest lap of anybody so far in this Grand Prix, a 1:35 flat, and that is making full use of those new tyres that he took on. Taking a look in super slow-mo at the Bridgestone tyres of the Ferrari.
The right rear looking a little bit iffy on Michael's car, but that's just pickup, I would imagine. It's not the tyre that's most heavily loaded around here. Most of the fast corners are right-handers, and it's the left rear that'll take the stick. But I'm a little bit confused by Alonso's stop as to why they didn't fuel him longer than that, because that's very much brought Fisichella right back into play. We'll have to see how it goes. Button's got to find some race pace because he's falling back effectively. Montoya too in the Ferrari. Massa still hasn't pitted, and nor has Barrichello, so they must have been virtually, both drivers knowing they've got an engine change, they must have been virtually full on the start line.
Well, it's an interesting one, this, because after the refuelling mistake of Renault, the team was saying that Alonso was far from the optimum fuel load, because obviously they put twice as much fuel in as they'd expected. And obviously they were setting the car up, both cars, to do two-stop strategies, with the first stop perhaps as early as lap 15 or 16. In the event, it was lap 16 that Fisichella came in. He was supposed to go, I think, a lap longer, Alonso, but he ended up going 10 laps longer because of the mistake. So I just wonder whether perhaps the way the car is set up, what they're looking for is the speed they feel is in running a little bit lighter, and that's probably why they've switched him into making another stop again. We will see. Certainly he's going very quickly at the moment, as into the pits comes Felipe Massa.
From fourth, his first stop of the afternoon. They'll fuel him, surely that'll get him to the end of the one way to go for 9 or 10 seconds worth of fuel. So we think Fisichella and Alonso have both got to stop again. Alonso's 15 seconds behind. He'll have a shorter stop when he does stop. And now he's just got to find a bundle of track time against his teammate. So let's see if he can do it. At the moment, he's taking about 3/4 of a second per lap out of Fisichella. That's Alonso in third. Button is in a Renault sandwich at the moment with his Honda. Montoya back up to fourth now after Massa's stop. But he's now lapping in the 37s, Montoya, where the leaders are 35s and low 36s. So very poor pace. McLaren will be scratching, unless he's got a specific problem, they'll be scratching their heads on that one.
Yes, because it has to be said, they were massively confident going into this Grand Prix. You heard Ron Dennis talking to Steve Ryder at the beginning of the show. You could just tell from his body language how confident he was feeling as Massa locks up his left front tyre. There's less of a penalty this year, of course, because you can make tyre changes at the pit stops. So flat spotting your tyres, as we saw last year, was a very expensive business. Cost you an awful lot, because you had to use the same set of tyres at the end of the Grand Prix. Here this year, not quite so costly, but Massa does seem to do it quite a lot. Little niggles and tweaks, mistakes that he makes, the odd mistake. Fisichella, though, just doesn't quite seem to have the pace of his teammate. He's picked up the pace a little bit, but let's see what this is all about.
Carlo, dangerous still, Fernando. You're 15 seconds in front, but he's pushing really hard, mate. He's quicker. He's 7 tenths quicker at the moment. Need to keep it going.
That's not what you want to hear, is it? You're leading the Grand Prix comfortably by 10 seconds, and you're being told an absolute fact that your teammate's catching you, and the strategy is such that he's going to beat you if you don't get on with it. But at least it's better to know that now than after the race finishes. So Giancarlo's now been given the hurry up while he's comfortably leading the Grand Prix on lap 31.
And bear in mind that Fisichella is 10 laps into this fuel load, so he's already burnt off 25, 26 kilos of fuel on this run, whereas Alonso only came into the pits a few laps ago. So he's 10 laps ahead of him, in fact, is Fisichella in terms of fuel. So that really is a mighty effort from Alonso. You can see just how hard he pushes.
Well, I wonder if Button will be Fisichella's best mate here in terms of Alonso's catching Jenson Button half-second a lap. And it's not going to be that long before he's up to the back of Jenson. Will that just hold up Alonso's relentless progress? But Alonso really is a smart driver these days. He knows how to drive an entire Grand Prix weekend, let alone race itself. And well, he's just 4.4 behind Jenson at the end of that last lap then, catching him quickly. 14.3 now. This is now a Renault 1-2. It's between the two Renault drivers, because Button and Montoya do not have the pace to do anything about the Renaults.
Leader and Michael Schumacher is sixth, but he's lapping in the high 136s, a good second a lap slower than the Renaults. So Renault coming good again here. What a tremendous performance by them, having pushed the car development all the way to the end of last season and won the Constructors' Championship and the Drivers. And they've managed to come out with a fantastic car again, the benchmark car in 2006. Rubens Barrichello from 7th place then, making his first and probably, I imagine, his one and only stop of the afternoon. Rubens on a one-stopper. And, well, Pat Simmons, the technical guy from Renault, the director of engineering, was paying tribute to Alonso on Thursday, saying that his greatest strength is knowing when to attack and when to keep something in reserve. picking out those moments. Obviously, he relies on Pat and his engineer Rod Nelson as well to tell him when to push and when not to, but he just has that innate sense as well built into him, that intelligence to know when to go on the warpath. And I tell you what, Martin, if he goes on here to collect his second victory in a row at the beginning of this championship, he'll have 20 points to Kimi Räikkönen's 6, and the picture of last year is starting to reform, isn't it?
It is, but Fisichella has responded. He was a tenth quicker than Alonso on that last lap, as Massa asks, I think it was a Super Aguri driver, what do you think you're doing? But that's easy for him now. He's in a nice fast Ferrari. And let's look, first sector again, Fisichella's up, so he's responded now. That's showing Alonso catching Button, which he is still just doing. But Fisichella and Button have responded. Alonso then has got a lot of work to do. Fisichella can win this race, there's no doubt about it, if he can just keep pumping in relentlessly good lap times.
Well, Button is now on the same pace as the two Renaults. He is lapping in the mid to high 135s for lap after lap, so he's there on pace at this point. But as we saw a few laps ago around the pit stops, that's when he lost the time. He was tucked up behind Juan Montoya. That cost him a little bit of time, but straight after that, his pace just wasn't quite there. Now he's picked it up, though, and he is running in second place, under 10 seconds behind the race leader, and 4.5 seconds in front of Alonso.
Montoya's picked his pace up as well. There's something mysterious on the McLaren where he doesn't seem to have a consistent something or other. He's not happy fully in the car. His paces are all over the place. Right now, it's good. Ted is down at Honda.
Yeah, just a couple of explanations as to what's going on. I've been and spoken to the team. They say that Rubens is reporting absolutely no problems with the car. He's just not able to produce the pace. And remember, he changed chassis, Martin. So this chassis went fast enough in the hands of Anthony Davidson on Friday. So a bit of a mystery is exactly what's going on with Rubens Barrichello. On Jenson Button's side of the garage, it's, quote, panning out. The race is panning out exactly as they expected. Well, he's being closed on by Alonso. So I guess behind the Renaults isn't so bad for now, anyway.
Just to explain that reference to Anthony Davidson. Davidson is the team's test driver, and also he does the Friday running. The teams who finished outside the top 4 in the World Championship last year are allowed to run a third car for Friday practice only, and it's quite a significant advantage this year. It allows you to run some tyres, do some setup work, and test the engines and that kind of thing. And Anthony Davidson is an immensely experienced test driver. Had a few race outings, of course, including here last year, where he deputised for Takuma Sato, and he was very quick in the Friday test. Rubens Barrichello had a problem with his car on Saturday morning and switched to that spare car that Davidson had run on the Friday for qualifying and the race. So that's what Barrichello's doing, but he himself had not had any time to tune the car in. And I think the thing about Barrichello, Martin, and you were his teammate once, is he does need to feel completely comfortable with everything, particularly the brakes. He's very pernickety about the brakes being right, isn't he? But obviously to dump him in a car he's not driven before, it must be difficult for him to adjust.
Mate, we need to get about another 1 second on Button to come out ahead of him.
Okay, so Button is who Alonso can see. The camera foreshortens that very long pit straight. He's exactly 4 seconds adrift of him. They've calculated, obviously, how much fuel Jenson needs to get to the end of the Grand Prix. They know when he last stopped. Obviously, you're going to be running on fumes if you get it right as you cross the line. And so that would suggest they think he's going to come out behind Fisichella as well, doesn't it? That suggests Renault. And, wow, I see Alonso that time. For the first time for 3 laps, Alonso was quite a bit quicker than Fisichella. That's going to be a great race right at the end, isn't it? A great race.
A bit of a look at Fisichella riding on board with him. What happens here? A little bit of a lock-up left front, pushing hard then. It's between the 2 Renault drivers, but Jenson Button's still in the mix as well. 22 laps to go to the finish here in Malaysia. There is one Pablo Montoya, currently in 4th place, some 37 seconds behind the race leader. And that's not the kind of speed that McLaren are looking for from this car. They want to be beating Renault, not finishing, well, 37 seconds behind at the moment. We've still got 22 laps to go. There's Ron Dennis, very confident before the Grand Prix. I think there'll be a bit of an inquiry about this race, though. Kimi Räikkönen eliminated early on the first lap. Fisichella forces his way past some back markers. A lot of traffic here for Giancarlo Fisichella. This is costing him time.
They're getting out of the way quite nicely now, though, aren't they? In fact, to clear 3 back markers that quickly in the end, I guess he's probably a little bit lucky. Let's look at his first sector time. It only cost him ½ second, didn't it? Not too bad.
Pushing on in the lead then, Giancarlo Fisichella, the pole sitter. He will be making his stop before teammate Alonso, flashing past the Super Aguri there. Looking for his first win since Australia last year. There's Jenson Button in second place, keeping the margin to less than 10 seconds and holding Alonso to around about 4 seconds. So it's going to be very close between Alonso and Button at this rate, but Button will pit the sooner of the two. Right, we've got a 10-second stop-and-go penalty for car number 11, Rubens Barrichello. And that's a bit ironic, isn't it? His one and only pit stop of the race, and he's speeding in the pit lane was the infringement. So that's going to cost him about 16 or 17 seconds onto his race time. Into the last 20 laps of the Malaysian Grand Prix from Sepang, just outside Kuala Lumpur. You're riding on board with Juan Pablo Montoya, who is a rather anonymous 4th place today for McLaren. The team that thought they were going to win this race with Kimi Raikkonen. A 10-second stop-and-go penalty has been awarded to Rubens Barrichello, car number 11, for speeding in the pit lane. He's only one stopping this afternoon, but, well, that's an expensive mistake for Rubens. As I mentioned, we lost Kimi Raikkonen on the first lap of this Grand Prix. I believe he made contact with Christian Klien and punted off the racetrack. Certainly many people in Formula One's favourite to win this race. He was eliminated. Also, Rosberg is out, an engine failure for him. David Coulthard was stuck in 6th gear and he retired. Mark Webber stopped the car out on the track with some smoke coming out of the back of it. And Christian Klien, having damaged the suspension in the collision in the first lap, then carried on for a while, but he is now not classified. 17 cars still running, make that 16 with Ide having pulled off the racetrack from 17th place. Here's the stop-and-go penalty of 10 seconds for Rubens Barrichello. This race then is between the 2 Renault drivers primarily. Giancarlo Fisichella is leading by 10 seconds from Jenson Button, who's managing to maintain the gap to Alonso at 4 seconds. Button is quick at the moment. He lost time around about the time just after his first pit stop, but at this stage of the Grand Prix, he's on the same pace as the Renault drivers. Is it too late for him to try and put a charge on for the race?
You're on your target lap. We need everything now, Jenson.
Yeah, just trying to wonder, I'm wondering why Alonso's not in the background just behind Jenson there. He looks like he's further behind, doesn't he? His first sector time's okay, he was 4 seconds adrift. Okay, well, there was a slow lap by Alonso. A lot of traffic. Jenson's really getting caught up in other people's squabbles here, and it's costing him dearly because Fisichella just cruised through these 3 cars. They just got straight out of the way. And the Toro Rosso there not wanting to yield at all. This is really hurting Jenson a lot in terms of his overall position against Fisichella. And can Alonso make hay through this traffic?
He's lost 2 seconds in the middle sector alone, Jenson Button. He can't afford to do that. He absolutely cannot afford to do it. Into the pits comes race leader Giancarlo Fisichella. He had an amazing middle sector, the fastest of anybody so far in the Grand Prix on his in-lap. He's trying really hard to win this race, Fisichella.
Traffic's going to help him. A brand new set of tyres then for his final stint. Ooh, lost about a ½ second, that's all there. And Ted is down there.
Yeah, and a good move from Honda. They've decided Jenson was losing far too much time. We heard him on the radio shouting, traffic, traffic, and they pitted him. So here he is about 7.5 seconds the target, although hopefully they'll be quicker than that. Here we go, all clean so far. Bit late on the lollipop. Let's go where he goes out in this battle with Alonso.
Okay, and that's a Midland coming down there, isn't it? Rather than, no, it's the McLaren of Montoya that's gone through as well. So Button's back behind Montoya. Just doesn't seem to work for him, does it?
Absolutely, exactly the same scenario as in Bahrain, coming out behind Juan Montoya, who he had to overtake twice during that Grand Prix. It just doesn't seem to work out for him coming out of pit stops, as you say. And this is what's costing him big time. The traffic, though, on the way in, that cost him big time as well. About 3 seconds, probably, compared to Fisichella, who caught the traffic in a good place.
Fernando has got 5 more laps till his pit stop, 5 more laps.
So, last time round, Alonso pitted 10 laps after Fisichella. This time it's 5 laps after. And these are the laps, really, where Fisichella and Alonso are eyeball to eyeball now. It's about who's in front when Alonso emerges from his pit stop in 5 laps' time.
And Alonso's got clear track ahead of him. He's got a lot of work to do, though. But clear track ahead of him. And he's passed those back markers quite easily. I think he's going to come out behind Fisichella, but maybe just in front of Button. Does Montoya have to stop again? I wonder if Renault don't have a big enough tank to one stop, because I don't really understand. Maybe the performance just drops off too much. Don't have all the data I need on that, but I really wonder why they didn't one stop Fernando Alonso.
Well, of course, just as in Bahrain, he will have a shorter final pit stop, and that was crucial, wasn't it, in terms of coming out in front of Michael Schumacher, because he's going to pit with about 13 laps to go, so he only needs 13 laps worth of fuel, which will only take about 6 seconds to get into the car. So that's a pushing hard then. He's currently 7.8 seconds ahead of Giancarlo Fisichella. We will monitor that gap very, very closely indeed.
Fizzy's outlap was one of the best of the day. He's doing all the right things today to win this Grand Prix as Giancarlo Fisichella. Bit of traffic to dispatch down into the braking zone of turn 9. And calm and collected. We saw him in Bahrain, didn't we? Just losing his cool. We've seen it at other times too, but today he looks like he's been absolutely rock solid as Fisichella. He'll still be gutted, won't he, if he sees Alonso emerge out of the pits and beat him to the apex of turn 1. But Alonso's got so much work to do. Let's look at the comparative sectors. Fisichella's a couple of tenths faster on this lap already. No, it's about even Stevens actually. So Alonso not making enough time up when he's got some clear air. Fisichella is pegging him, no doubt about it.
Yeah, it's looking good for Giancarlo Fisichella, because Alonso's going to need 16 seconds plus the 6 or so for he'll be stationary if we put the fuel in. It's looking very good for Giancarlo Fisichella at this point. That's Flavio Briatore, the team principal of Renault. He's seen victory in the first Grand Prix for one of his drivers, Alonso, and at the moment the odds are stacking very much in the favour of his other driver, Giancarlo Fisichella, taking victory. He's using all the revs on the engine. Look, right up to 19,000 on the red line. That's the maximum revs at the moment for these engines. So absolutely no question of Fisichella turning the engine down. And Martin, perhaps that's one of the decisive things here, because obviously Fisichella, having retired from Bahrain, was able to take a fresh engine this weekend, where Alonso's engine obviously has done a whole Grand Prix weekend and then the whole of this weekend as well. Maybe he's not been able to use quite so much of the power.
No, he just have to take it to Australia as well, so he can't thrash it to within an inch of its life. But you're right, he might just have a few more horsepower. Well, he almost certainly will have a few more horsepower and the fresher motor. But he's driving nicely too. He's just in the groove the whole way round the track. Let's see, Alonso then ended up a tenth faster on that lap. He's just 7.8 seconds ahead of Fisichella. And well, it's looking like Fisichella's race, isn't it? Very much so now. It's really all about second, third and fourth.
Absolutely. Button tucked up behind Juan Montoya. Currently 1.8 seconds behind the McLaren driver. Montoya stopped on lap 23 and took on 8.3 seconds worth of fuel, which means he does have to stop again. So Button will be able to get past him. Button is on for a podium here in Sepang. And, well, it's a track where he scored his first ever Formula One podium back in 2004, at the beginning of a very, very profitable and fruitful season for Jenson Button. We do think he'll be up on the podium a lot this year, but the top step That's what he really wants, and it's the details that the team and he have got to work on if he wants to make that happen.
Tell you what surprised me is that the Toro Rossos have not been stealing a few points. We thought they would just pound relentlessly round, didn't we? Speed's 11th, Liuzzi having stopped 3 times down in 14. I really thought in this early stage of the season they would steal some cheap points, and it just hasn't happened. Montoya over the rear wing of that beautiful but not quite pacey enough McLaren today, and Button bearing down on him. And as you said, James, we are expecting Montoya to have to pit again. We're on lap 42 out of 56.
Yeah, it has to be said, Montoya has not held up Button this time, because Montoya, of course, has a very light car. Button, car is fueled to the finish, so at the moment that's not really costing Jenson Button lap time. If he could find a couple of seconds, he would be in danger of taking second place away from Alonso here, because the margin between Alonso and Button is 23 seconds, and Alonso's going to need about 21 or 22 to make his pit stop. So Jenson Button pushing as hard as he possibly can, but at the moment he is not on a personal best lap, which is certainly what he'd need to be at the moment if he was going to be able to try and take that second place away from Alonso. But it will be close between them.
McLaren are getting ready for Montoya because he's ready to come in the pits. It now appears very clear. That'll release Button. Button can still, you're right, he can still nick it from Alonso here, P2, because that takes Montoya off the podium, I think. And Button still, it's going to be close between Alonso and Button, as you say, but Montoya then pits at the same time. His 5th place man, Nick Heidfeld, quiet man, having a quiet race, but doing a great job for BMW. Michael Schumacher remains P6, lapping at the same pace as the leaders in the second, or in the Ferrari. Massa in the second Ferrari, just behind him in 7th. So they've not been setting the world alight today, but they're going to score some points at Ferrari.
Yeah, they are going to score some points, that's for sure. And Massa, all credit to him, he's come through from 21st place on the grid to be 7th, 17 seconds behind teammate Schumacher, who started 14th on the grid. That's a pretty good effort, because Schumacher obviously is one of the very best at fighting his way through, and Massa has shown himself to be no slouch at all. Impressive performance by Massa, an impressive performance, as you say, by Nick Heidfeld. I don't think we've even seen him today, apart from one brief lock-up early on, but he's running comfortably in the BMW Sauber in 5th place, and a very good job by him.
Right, Alonso was 23.8 seconds ahead of Button, and he's been on this lap about 3/10. So let's say 24 seconds he's got over Jenson Button. Surely Fisichella will regain the lead, and Alonso should, if it's a good stop, a little tweak of the front wing there, he should come out in front of Jenson. Away he goes. That looked quick, didn't it?
6 seconds, bang on.
Oh, look at that. Who's that coming down the pit straight? Difficult to tell from that angle.
Very
I think it was
difficult to tell
Barrichello,
from that
wasn't it?
angle.
In
Yeah.
front. This
Easy
is
to make a
now.
monkey of yourself on that one. Out he comes, and there is Alonso back on track. Is that Jenson Button swinging through the shot? I think it is.
Yeah.
So Button is down to 3rd place. That's how close it was. Jeff Willis there, the technical director of Honda, in the middle of that threesome. And, well, it didn't quite work out. Button just didn't have the pace immediately after his pit stop to make the difference here today. So that's what's cost him against Alonso. Started on the front row of the grid, Jenson Button. Alonso started 7th, and he is in front of him on the racetrack. Fisichella, though, started on pole. He's leading this Grand Prix, and he's heading towards his 3rd career victory in 161 races. 13 laps to go here in Sepang. Riding on board, one of the Ferraris, Michael Schumacher. And the big question mark is whether or not he has to make another pit stop. He's currently 32 seconds behind the race leader and 12 seconds in front of Juan Pablo Montoya, but he took an awful lot of fuel on, according to our calculations, on his pit stop, his one and only pit stop so far, which was lap 23. And was it enough to get him to the finish, I wonder?
Look at Alonso's outlap, 2 seconds quicker than I've seen anybody else. On a 1:54, he red sectored, the fastest man of anybody in the entire Grand Prix. We're on lap 45, of anybody in the 2nd and 3rd sectors. Alonso's decided he's going to go after Fisichella, no doubt about it. He's 11.7 seconds adrift after that pit stop. What are Renault going to do? Surely they're going to have to say, okay guys, game over. It's a 1-2. Fisichella wins the Grand Prix, but Button was 4 seconds adrift. Michael Schumacher just 10 behind Jenson Button. I think Michael has to go for a quick splash and dash towards the end of the race. I can't believe he's going to get from lap 23 to the end of the Grand Prix. If he does, he's going to beat Montoya.
Yeah, certainly set up for a grandstand finish. Alonso chasing after Giancarlo Fisichella. He certainly gave the tyres murder in that out lap. He's pushing hard as well on this next lap to try and close down Fisichella, who is lapping about half a second a lap slower than Michael Schumacher and Montoya. There are the Ferrari crew getting ready for one of their two cars. Ross Brawn there, technical director and chief strategist up on the pit wall. Is it Michael Schumacher?
It
Pretty much must be, mustn't it?
Yeah.
Massa on a one-stop here this afternoon, having come through the field from the back. So Michael Schumacher is 21 seconds ahead of Massa. He might not come out, or he might just be right next to him, actually, when he comes out. Laps to go here in Sepang, and this is shaping up to be a cracker of a finish. Michael Schumacher comes in for a splash and dash. It took a little longer than they anticipated. Will he come out in front of his teammate Felipe Massa, who has worked his way through the field from 22nd on a one-stop strategy? There is Massa on the right, Schumacher on the left. No is the answer. Massa is in front of the 7-time world champion. It's been a fantastic drive by Felipe Massa. Like Raikkonen last week in Bahrain, he's come through the field wonderfully. At the front, though, we have a heck of a scrap on. Giancarlo Fisichella looked like he'd done enough. You can see the board there. Schumacher Usato means used tyres. Chris Dyer, the race engineer, telling them to bring a set of used tyres out for Schumacher. That's Felipe Massa riding on board some sort of replay here. Probably another lockup. Yes, it is. Another in a series of lockups. But nevertheless, he's in front of his team leader. But at the front, Giancarlo Fisichella is being caught by Fernando Alonso. Patrick Head there of Williams. Looks like he's in his civvies and heading for the airport. Both of his cars have retired from this Grand Prix. Rosberg with a spectacular blow-up, and Mark Webber also what looked like an engine problem. We've also lost Kimi Raikkonen on the opening lap with a collision. Christian Klien we've lost. We have also lost David Coulthard, who had a hydraulics problem and was stuck in 6th gear. Only 16 cars still running in this race of attrition Grand Prix here. But it's not all over at the front, is it, Martin? Alonso is really going after Fisichella. Took 2 seconds out of him on his first lap out of the pit stop, and now he's down to 8 seconds behind.
He's dragging Button along in third, but Alonso just flying. Now, if you let them race to the ultimate lap, surely they've got to go for the sensible option here. But if they are, then Alonso hasn't got that message yet.
But who's the more likely driver to be challenging for the World Championship? I suppose that's one of the questions they've got to ask themselves. Nevertheless, Fisichella deserves a Grand Prix victory here. He's done everything right today, really. He's pushed very, very hard. Alonso was compromised by a mistake by the team in qualifying yesterday. They put too much fuel in his car, basically twice the amount of fuel he should have been carrying. So he was 2 seconds off the pace, 2 seconds a lap off the pace in qualifying. And that's why he was down in 7th place with a very compromised strategy. But you'd never bet against Alonso to make the most of an unpromising situation. He has fought his way through to contest victory here this afternoon. He's in front of Jenson Button. He's going after Fisichella.
I think he's backed off. I think he's now got the message. Both Renaults will now pace themselves against third place man Button. Over the line he goes with a 1:36.3. From 1.5 seconds slower than he has been going. So that message has gone out, and it's the only sensible one. You cannot let these guys, with the 2-engine rule, you cannot let them go and risk blowing the engines up or running into each other or whatever. It's the sensible team decision, although it spoils the fun for us because Alonso was absolutely flying. Fisichella leads Alonso by 8 seconds. Button just 6 seconds behind them. And there is the rear wing. A lot of fuss in the paddock amongst the designers as to whose rear wings are flexing, the slot gaps closing, reducing reducing. That's moving a lot, that rear wing, isn't it? That rear wing is moving. There'll be a lot of people analysing the very piece of footage you're now looking at, and because it just gets rid of some drag. That's Massa looking back to the sister Ferrari of Michael Schumacher, of course. They're running 6th and 7th at the moment. I wonder how Michael will feel about that.
Look at the rear wing end plates as well, flexing. Certainly a great deal of controversy surrounding this season. It's one of those areas. Ross Brawn was talking about it yesterday in his press briefing, and saying that well, you design a racing car within a cigarette paper, basically, of the rules and the tolerances. And if you go too conservative on any of the areas of design, whether it be the weight or the way that the rear wing is measured, etc., then you're going to be slow. And all the teams are doing the same thing. They're all right within the edge. There's the tape that Jean Todt puts over all his fingernails for a Grand Prix to stop himself from biting them down to the quick.
Yeah, you read the regulations twice. First time to see what they say, and the second time to see how you can stretch them to the breaking point. It's the same deal. But and of course, something like wings flexing at 150 miles an hour, there's not an exact science in terms of proving it. I think it's pretty complex how they design them and lay them up now to make sure they perform in a controlled and consistent way whilst they're moving out of the way, as it were.
Well, if you're wondering what the advantage is of them flexing, the other teams say it reduces the drag in a straight line. It means the car will have a higher speed in a straight line. And certainly if you compare the straight line speeds of the Ferrari with the Red Bull racing car, which is powered by the same V8 engine, you'd have to say that they are pretty impressive. And how do they test the rear wings? Well, the FIA technical people have some weighted devices that basically simulate downforce and pull down on the rear wing in certain places. And if you can make someone's blown up big time there. If you can make the wing flex a bit, then you can get away with it. There's Heidfeld from 5th place. Oh no, the BMW engine lets go of Nick Heidfeld, and a 5th place denied him with just 8 laps to go to the end of the Grand Prix, having driven a tremendous race.
Yeah, I was just going to say that Massa probably fancies his chances. He's catching Heidfeld by quite a lot, but that's not going to be a problem any longer. Heidfeld is driven very well, running in P5. That brings Ralf Schumacher in the Toyota up into the points in P8, having had a disastrous weekend with actually quite a fast car. We're on board with Liuzzi having a go at the MF1 of Albers and takes that position. That's for 12th place.
Now Liuzzi using a rev-limited V10 engine, the only team in the field to do so. Everyone else has gone on to the new V8 engines. That loophole was originally created for Minardi team, who are a low-budget outfit, and they couldn't afford a proper V8 engine, so that's what it was for. But with Red Bull having taken over Minardi, they've continued with the contract with the Cosworth to run the rev-limited V10s, and certainly Midland are very unhappy about that. Look at the straight-line speed advantage that Liuzzi has.
Well, he needed every breath of slipstream he could find, didn't he? And then Albers realising he was going to have to concede. Liuzzi, and well, we got a high regard for Tonio Liuzzi in this paddock, and let's hope we can see him for several years to come. Yeah, Fisichella leads by 8.7 seconds. Button 5.7 beyond by Heidfeld before Heidfeld blew up. So he's got an 8-second advantage now over Massa and Michael Schumacher in the 2 Ferraris. So Montoya with a solid, if unspectacular, 4th place. I hope for McLaren's sake that he's got some kind of specific problem, because that's been very disappointing in terms of, well, from time to time in terms of pace.
Well, we're an hour and 25 minutes into this Grand Prix, just 6 laps to go. The drivers will have lost around about 4 litres of fluid from their body, half a stone in body weight, and they'll all be desperate for a drink when they get out. The drinks bottles on the cars, some of them have about half a litre, some of them have about a litre, but by this stage of the race, it'll be the temperature of tea, and particularly unpalatable. Well, looking back on the race then, Fisichella leading from pole position, Jenson Button behind him. Alonso made a wonderful start from 7th on the grid to 3rd into the first corner, ahead of the 2 Williams who were squabbling over that position. And Kimi Raikkonen was eliminated with an accident. There was early stops from Giancarlo Fisichella and Jenson Button. Alonso took the lead at that point and went 9 laps longer than Fisichella and Button. And that's been the story, really. His strategy completely compromised by having put too much fuel in the car in the qualifying session. Fisichella, though, has done everything absolutely right. Briefly, Jenson Button led the Grand Prix, but when he came out after his first pit stop, he just didn't have the pace in the car to be able to put in the lap times that the Renaults were doing. In that crucial phase, he lost time. And that means that Jenson Button is going to wind up behind Fisichella and Alonso. He almost had enough to get second place, did Jenson, but not quite on the day. The two Ferraris, well, Massa has come through the field from the very back to be in front of his teammate Michael Schumacher. Massa has done a one-stop strategy today, Schumacher a two-stopper, and Schumacher also compromised, having had an engine penalty for changing an engine before qualifying. He qualified 4th yesterday, but started 14th on the grid, but he's finishing behind his teammate Felipe Massa. Those two are 5th and 6th for Ferrari. A quiet afternoon for Montoya, having seen his teammate Raikkonen crash out on the opening lap. He hasn't had the pace at all, and McLaren will want to know why this afternoon. Second race in a row that Montoya hasn't shown the sort of speed we expected. Is it him? Is it the car? Well, we'll certainly find out afterwards. Jacques Villeneuve is in 7th place. He's going to collect 2 points. And Ralf Schumacher will give Toyota something to smile about. He's currently running in 8th after a very strong race from the back of the field. He's made 3 pit stops this afternoon, but nevertheless, he is in 8th place. And Toyota, who were very slow in Bahrain, look like they're going to pick a point up here this afternoon.
Ted is down at McLaren.
Yeah, just on that Montoya issue, I'm down in the McLaren garage, Martin, and either they're preserving his engine to make sure that 4th place is secure, of course no points from Kimi Raikkonen in this race, or he's got a developing engine problem. If you have a look at his straight line speeds, he's considerably down on Jenson Button, and every time he goes past the pits, his engine note is just a little bit duller than everybody else. It is the second race with this engine, and remember he did complain a bit about it in Bahrain, but well, let's hope he can finish for McLaren's sake in that 4th position.
Yeah, McLaren can watch the crankcase pressures and all sorts of parameters from that engine on the pit wall, and I suspect also back in Woking in England as well, they're watching, they'll know 10 times more about that than Montoya, who's driving it. But it does have a bit of a coarse sound to it. Depends on exactly how the primary and secondary pipes are all positioned. But he's not going to have a lot of comfort zone, because Massa and Michael Schumacher are now only 5 seconds behind him, lapping 2 seconds faster. We're on lap 53. Oh, that's a Renault getting a bit out of shape. So Fisichella's got an 8-second lead, but Fisichella there just made a small error. But no, he will take no pain for that.
Yep, they're lapping half a second, a lap slower than Jenson Button in 3rd place. He's going to finish just 5 seconds behind Alonso and 13 seconds behind the race leader at this stage. There is Ralf Schumacher, and that is for position. That's the sole remaining BMW of Jacques Villeneuve, who's driven very well this weekend, up into 7th place. We've seen his teammate Heidfeld blow up just a few laps ago, and Ralf Schumacher is catching Villeneuve at about 1.2 seconds a lap, so that will be a showdown finish here. They've got some traffic in front of them as well.
Montoya just 4.4 ahead now in 4th from Massa in 5th, with Michael Schumacher right on his tail, just 6/10 adrift. So Montoya, if he's got anything left, he's going to have to just pick the pace up a little bit, otherwise he's going to be nip and tuck on the last lap. Villeneuve then with a face full of back marker and mirrors full of Ralf Schumacher.
Well, Rubens Barrichello is down in 10th place. He did a one-stop strategy here this afternoon. He also had to have an engine penalty, changing that Honda engine yesterday before qualifying. But unfortunately for him, he was speeding in the pit lane fine, and he had to come through for a stop-and-go penalty. He's down in 10th place, but he's just set his fastest lap of the Grand Prix in a 1:36.1. And, well, you often ask the question, but where was that pace earlier on?
I think Rubens is just still exploring and understanding the kit that he's got to drive, and that'll put a smile on his face, actually, I think. I don't think it's the sleeping driver finally waking up when the points and the prize money is being paid. I think Rubens really is genuinely struggling to get on top of this car, but it seems like he's found a little bit better pace now. Fisichella leads by 7.5 seconds from Alonso. Button 5 seconds further behind in 3rd. Montoya now just 4.3 ahead of 5th place Massa. Michael Schumacher holding station. Villeneuve is 82 seconds behind the leader in 7th. Ralf Schumacher just a fraction behind him, the last unlapped runner in 8th place.
Yeah, Ralf Schumacher here, closing in on the back of Villeneuve, looking for Toyota's first points of the championship. Villeneuve got off to a good start in Bahrain last weekend, and he's doing well again here. Here's Felipe Massa, who is Michael Schumacher's 10th teammate during his Formula 1 career. You were one of them. And Massa is obviously very fast. And what do you think about this performance here today?
Massa is brilliantly fast, but wild. And I think he's gradually controlling the, the wild side of it, but not enough from what we saw in Bahrain last weekend. But he's solid enough when he's pointing the right way and on the right bit of the track.
Well, Michael Schumacher is in 6th place at the moment. Felipe Massa in 5th. Only 1 point difference between those two finishing positions. You get 4 points for 5th place and 3 points for 6th. So in terms of Michael Schumacher's championship, I think it's not going to do him too much harm if he finishes behind his team leader. We've seen switches in the past between Schumacher's teammates and Schumacher, but I don't think we'll see that here. Ted Kravitz is in Ferrari. What can you tell us?
Well, I hope we're not going to see it here, but I tell you what, Ross Brawn and Jean Todt are having quite a conversation just a moment ago on the pit wall. Todt kneeling on his chair as he does, Ross hunched over the console, neither of them particularly happy, just discussing what they should do. But it's so early in the season, and what's to be gained by a couple of extra points, James?
Well, quite. Massa, though, as I say, going to pick up 4, Michael Schumacher 3, and I think the decision to change the engines so frequently over the weekend has been vindicated really for Ferrari, because they have actually managed to get themselves some points despite having to take the engine penalties. Massa's changed his engine 3 times, and Michael Schumacher's changed his once. So Ferrari, as I said before, have a problem with this engine. They have to get it fixed by the Australian Grand Prix. It's been certainly a real Achilles heel here. I believe it's something to do with the piston rings, although Ferrari are not saying exactly what it is, but they'll be working very hard on that over the next 10 days before they go to Australia. One more lap to go then for Giancarlo Fisichella.
Yeah, Ferrari's changing position on the last lap, albeit not for first and second. There's a bit of an emotive issue still in Formula 1, but let's hope they don't choose to do that. Fisichella was 6.7 seconds clear of the now coasting Alonso, because Button's 5 seconds behind him. And Montoya comfortably 4th. Massa's not really catching him now. I think Massa's more busy watching his teammate at this stage. And Villeneuve looks set for a couple of World Championship points, but he's 80 seconds away from the leader. And these two Ferraris are 45 seconds adrift, and I think they'll be surprised and disappointed about that.
Yep, Renault is certainly the benchmark team at the moment. Montoya in the McLaren is 40 seconds behind race leader Fisichella, so it certainly is going to be an open championship. This is a track that clearly has suited the Renaults. They've been very strong here, despite their problems in qualifying. Honda, Jenson Button, they're going to finish 11 seconds behind the race leader. That's a better performance. And you can see that's how close Jenson Button is to actually winning a race this year. But here is the man who's going to come through to claim his 3rd Grand Prix victory in 161 starts. The nearly man, really, of Formula 1, often the forgotten man in the Renault team. He won last year's first Grand Prix and then had bad luck from there on. This year he had bad luck in the first Grand Prix, and he hopes it's a reverse, that good luck will follow for the rest of the season. He's had tremendous luck here. He's driven brilliantly. He is the winner of the Malaysian Grand Prix, Giancarlo Fisichella. Fantastic performance by the 33-year-old from Rome. The world champion finishes in 2nd place. Look how close Jenson Button is, just 9 seconds behind at the end. He picks up a podium. Alonso picks up his 25th Formula 1 career podium in just 70 starts. So underlining what a massive player he is in this sport. Waiting for Montoya to come through. There he is, and the 2 Ferraris behind. Montoya will finish 4th. Massa will finish in 5th place, ahead of teammate Michael Schumacher.
I think that's significant for Michael. Last week he was outgunned by Alonso, this week by his teammate. But we know he's still got a blistering speed, but that's not a great start to his season. And although on different strategies, looks like Villeneuve's going to hold Ralf Schumacher off as well for 7th. Ralf Schumacher 8th. Great drive from Fisichella, didn't put a foot wrong. Okay, Alonso was disadvantaged, but you have to say, at all points of the Grand Prix, Fisichella looked like he could answer anything Alonso might throw at him. I think if it was gauntlet down, absolutely a fight to the finish, Alonso would have been an awful lot closer than that, and probably pushing Fisichella harder than he would want to be pushed. But Fisichella driver of the day for me, no doubt about it. He had an answer for everything. Didn't appear to make any mistakes. Great run to the first corner. Translated a pole and a solid drive.
Yes, mate. Well done. Fantastico, Gian. Fantastico. Grazie a tutti. Thank you very much, guys. Fantastic job. Sei diventato un fenomeno. Bravo, 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 bravo. Bravo, Fidi, bravo.
Running offline, you can get a couple.
Carlo, you've done a perfect weekend, mate. An absolutely perfect weekend, every single lap. I'm well impressed. Well done.
Sums it up. You can collect a couple more kilos on the car by picking up the rubbish on the sides of the track, all the discarded bits of rubber, just to give yourself a bit of a helping hand on the weighbridge, just in case anything else has come adrift, some fluids lost. The car loses about, I think it's 5-6 kilos through the race in terms of the brakes wear out, fluids go missing, all sorts of bits and pieces. Tyres have less rubber on them than when they're new, so they have to compensate for that. So it's always good to get a bit of extra to give yourself some margin.
A 1-2 finish then for Renault, a 1-2-3-4 finish for Michelin. You can see 3 different makes of cars in the top 4. Ferrari's finishing 5th and 6th. Jacques Villeneuve getting another couple of points for BMW Williams, and Ralf Schumacher picking up a point for Toyota to get them off the mark in 2006. Only 14 cars finished. Takuma Sato did a terrific job in the Super Aguri Honda. When they get their new car in the European season, built by Honda, they will certainly be moving through the ranks, I think. And there's your winner, the veteran Fisichella, 9 years older than his teammate, but today he's put him in the shade. And here you can see an idea of the spirit between the two of them. Alonso's happy for him. He's happy for himself as well. 8 points picked up today means he's got 18 points in the World Championship. Kimi Raikkonen has only got 6. And it's a Renault bar mitzvah. There's Alan Perbain, his race engineer, absolutely delighted.
Did he say easy? I think he's saying it was easy in the end. JB, just 9 seconds off that win, that elusive win, but at least he's on the podium.
Yeah, another strong drive by Jenson Button, definitely. The team are not too far away. They've underlined to get today again their pace. For a large parts of the race, they're on the same pace as the Renaults. It's just those areas we've talked about where they lose ground, isn't it? They got a decent start at least today, unlike Bahrain, Jenson.
Yeah, it's looking good, isn't it? We know the McLarens are potentially fast. Button is solid, although he needs to find some fuel load pace. 2 Renaults are very, very strong. Lots of action, an exciting qualifying format that needs a tweak or two to make it a bit more understandable. But really set fair here, I think.
Driver's just going on the weighbridge.
The reason for that is they'll then deduct that weight from the car, because the limit is car and driver together, but the drivers won't go anywhere near the cars again. Now they're in parc fermé, so they have to know what the drivers weigh, and you have to remember to hold your crash helmet and your gloves and all the goodies, and then if you're really crafty you can hold a bottle of water in your hand and add a little bit more to it as well, but I suspect they're wise to that one by now.
Well, they're looking pretty good shape considering they've driven an hour and 38 minutes flat out in tremendous temperatures. Track temperature 39 at the end, air temperature 34, and the humidity down to 56%.
Talking about traffic, Jensen's shaking his head along with Fernando Alonso about this, talking about the traffic and the...
Accepting on behalf of the Mal 7 Renault team. So here they go. Giancarlo Fisichella, Fernando Alonso.
Familiar sight under the podium, the Renault team. They've got the winning habit. And for once it's Fisichella and not Alonso that takes the top step from pole position. Alonso got the fastest lap, so it's not a clean sweep for Fisichella, but nevertheless, pole and a win for the Italian. Fisicala's 15th visit to a Formula One podium, but only the 3rd time he's stood on the top step.
Prime Minister of Malaysia.
It's been a long career for Fisicala. Made his debut back in 1996.
Wicked-looking trophies, aren't they? Look like something out of a movie.
Alan Permain, the race engineer, collects the Constructors' Trophy on behalf of Renault. Nice touch of Flavio Briatore, not going up there himself on this occasion, sharing it out amongst the team. Fernando Alonso, second, compromised by the qualifying mistake with refuelling. May feel that cost him the victory, but nevertheless, he's only given away 2 points to his teammate, and he's gained 8 more on Raikkonen, who doesn't finish today. And Jenson Button getting closer, ever closer. That win surely can't be too far away. Well, it didn't turn out to be quite as competitive as we had expected. It looks like Fisicala's biding his time. But nevertheless, Renault supreme. A fantastic 1-2 finish here. Australia is next in 2 weeks' time.
Some.
Hello, Mum. Hello, Mum. Nice, kid. Encouraging. Sweet. Thumbs up. Nice one, boss. Very good.
Congratulations to the 3 podium finishers of the 2006 Formula One Petronas Malaysian Grand Prix. Third for Lucky Strike Honda, Jenson Button. Second for Mild 7 Renault, Fernando Alonso. And heading Renault's first 1-2 finish in 24 years, winning his third Grand Prix, Giancarlo Fisichella. Giancarlo, great scenes on the podium there with your race engineer, Alan Permain. Looked like a perfect race from pole position.
Yeah, perfect race. It was a tough race physically, mentally, but honestly, I didn't drink in the car. I was quite confident, quite comfortable. The car balance was just fantastic. There was a little bit of graining, and that after the pit stop it was a little small problem. But apart from that, it was great. It was great to have my engineer on the podium there, and I like to say thanks all the Renault Formula One team guys.
And an emotional weekend for you too.
Yeah, emotional weekend for me. It was important for me to do my best because I lost a friend of mine 1 week ago, and I like to dedicate that race to him. Ciao, Pietro.
Got to ask you about the conditions. Incredible heat out there. What was it like in the cockpit?
It was really hot, very, very hot. Already in the middle of the race, you are tired and you say, I cannot go through the end of the race, but it's important to be concentrate and just keep pushing and don't lose concentration.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Fernando, it says a lot about your drive from 7th place that Renault indeed led every lap of the race except one. A great start, a fight with Mark Webber in the early phase and then past Jenson in the closing stages.
Yeah, it was good from the start. We tried to overtake people in the first corner. I really brake very late in the outside. I risked, but it was my only opportunity to overtake. I was very heavy on fuel, so on the track was impossible. Only defend my position like I did with Webber. And from there, I think the race was easier. 2 short stints at the end with new tires, so I overtook Jenson. Unfortunately, yesterday we had this little problem in qualifying, and starting from the back was impossible to be close to the pole position.
But the car perfect today, and obviously very good with heavy fuel load and with light fuel load.
Yeah, the car has been good always here in Sepang, and this year as well. The R26, I think, will be competitive everywhere, and for me it's the perfect start of the championship. 18 points in 2 races is what I dream before Bahrain, and I try to win again in Australia and finish this first part of the championship away from Europe in the best way possible.
Congratulations. Jenson, well done to you too. 12th straight finish in the points, reliable and P3. Renault's hard to beat though, obviously. Very.
You know, there was no point in the race really where we could have gone any quicker. The only problem we had was Scott's speed. He held me up for a few laps, and Fernando was able to jump me in the stop. But apart from that, you know, there was nothing else there. You know, that was the maximum I could get out of the car on the limit every lap, and that's the way it is at the moment. But you know, it's good to get on the podium in the second race of the year, and joint second in the or third in the championship, I think. So it's just not too bad, but we've got a bit of work to do.
What areas particularly do Renault have the advantage over you at the moment, do you think?
It's very difficult to say. He pulled away so quick on the first lap, I couldn't see. But when I get back, I'll watch the race, and you know, I'll be able to find out where the places are. But I've got to say thanks to everyone within the team of Honda Racing. It's been a tough weekend for us. On Friday was very, very difficult, but yesterday was a good day, and to get a podium today is good. But you know, there's still a lot of hard work needed to catch these guys.
Congratulations to you too. A great start to the season. Now if we could finish with you, Giancarlo. Obviously a little bit of a break now. It's been a hectic start to 2006, but a much better start for you now. Things are on the roll.
Yeah, it's the opposite of last year season. I'm just looking forward now. I'm really comfortable into the team. There is a nice atmosphere. I got fantastic potential with the car and with the team. So we're really looking forward this year.
Well done. Now if we could have some words from you in your own language, starting with Giancarlo in Italian.
Ma sono contentissimo, non potevo chiedere di più. Pole e vittoria oggi è stata una gara fantastica, senza nessun errore, una macchina eccezionale. Alla fine abbiamo anche calato con i giri e potevamo gestire. Ho gestito la gara tranquillamente, quando dovevo spingere ho spinto, ma mai sono arrivato al limite. Devo dire grazie a tutta la Renault che mi ha dato una grande macchina, ha creduto in me e niente, non potevo chiedere di più oggi per dedicare questa vittoria a Pietro che è scomparso una settimana fa. Ciao.
Grazie. And Fernando in Spanish.
Bueno, ha sido una carrera interesante desde el punto de vista que salía séptimo, intentaba ganar posiciones al principio en la salida, intentar arriesgar, sabía que era la única oportunidad y todo fue bien, afortunadamente. Y a partir de ahí, pues por desgracia ayer teníamos demasiada gasolina en el coche, paré demasiado tarde, no fue de gran ayuda y no pude acercarme nunca a mi compañero, a Fisichella. Pero bueno, pude acabar segundo en la primera carrera primero y estos 18 puntos son importantísimos para el campeonato, ya que tanto Raikkonen como Michael han cogido muy pocos puntos hoy o ninguno y bueno, pues como serán mis rivales seguramente contento de sacarles un poco de distancia hoy.
Thanks, guys.